Welcome to Running for Real, a global community with a shared love and curiosity for running. Together we reconnect with the reasons why we love to run and discover ways it helps us become better people. Whether it's the quiet moments of a morning run while the rest of the world still sleeps, or befriending the strangers next to you at the start line of a race, we are here to connect with others who see running as the common thread that weaves our lives together. Come join me, Tina Muir, as I talk with people from all walks of life, united by a love of running. Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 380 of the Running for Real podcast. This is our last episode for 2 weeks. We will have one final episode before the end of the year, but in case you couldn't tell, need a bit of a break. And I'm happy to be giving my team a bit of a break too. So today I am excited that we are going to wrap up this, I guess, before this season. No, I don't know if I can call it a season, but regardless, we're taking a 2-week break. I'm excited to be bringing on my guest today, who is Jason Suarez, who is also known as the photographer Not Afraid to Fail. I have admired his work for a long time, and I recently got to meet him in New York. I was like, I would love to talk to you. He said yes, and he was even better in person than I imagined. We had a very deep and vulnerable conversation here. I think you're really going to enjoy this one. It is about failure. Yeah. It's also about achieving goals that you didn't think you could and what to do next. It's about struggling even when it appears everything else is going well. And again, we got pretty deep in here. So I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. We're going to take a moment to thank some of our sponsors, and then we'll be right to this episode with Jason. My life this year has been hectic. I have felt like I haven't been able to get in the nutrition I wanted. I have at times neglected what I've been able to eat and enjoyed eating out maybe a little bit more than I could have been with my choices. If you are a long-time listener, you might know I've been drinking AG1 for about 4 years now. When I started drinking AG1 daily, I noticed the difference in my health, my energy. I loved that I could wake up first thing in the morning, add a scoop to water, drink it down, and know I was being taken care of. That's because AG1 is a foundational nutritional supplement that supports your body's universal needs like gut optimization, stress management, and immune support. Since 2010, AG1 has led the future of foundational nutrition, continuously refining their formula to create a smarter, better way to elevate your baseline health. I've trusted AG1 for many years now. You heard me talking in this episode about how much they take care of me, and I'm so thankful for that. They didn't do that with any expectation. It was just because they care, because they believe in the work that I'm doing. If you want to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/Tina. That's drinkag1.com/Tina. Check it out. Hi friends, a quick reminder before we get to the episode that Becoming a Sustainable Runner is available on Audible, on Kindle, and on paperback through Amazon, through Barnes & Noble, through Target, and all other major retailers around the world. So go check it out, go order it. You can also get it to your library. But as it is holiday season, it would make a great holiday gift. And your support is very much appreciated. And if you have read it and you could leave a review on Amazon, that would be the biggest holiday gift you can give me. So thank you so much. All right, let's get to this episode. Jason, thank you so much for joining me on the Running for Real podcast. I'm excited that you are here and excited for our conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. We met about a month ago at I don't know about you, but I had an insane weekend and AG1 treated us to a spa day. I honestly don't know a better way I could have spent my Monday than in a spa having a treatment. So, yeah, it was amazing for me. I would love to hear your thoughts there.
Marathon weekend was insane. Pretty busy. Had a pop-up with a run crew out there, Allman Run Club.
Yeah.
From Wednesday, we had a pop up, and then we had also a gallery. We had like athletes come in on Friday night. So producing all of that, and then being
casually
taken care
running
of.
the race.
Right, casually running a marathon, but having AG1 kind of like be that support and like, hey, don't worry about like where you're staying. Don't worry about like your meals. Like we're going to feed you and stuff like that made marathon weekend a lot more enjoyable and a lot more like stress free. At least one thing I don't have to worry about.
Yeah. I genuinely don't know what I would have done.
Yeah. Same. Like going back home to like because I was originally from New York, but I couldn't picture myself going back home to my parents, sleeping on a couch after having those long days. So like super thankful for you.
Yes, no, I appreciate that. And I'm not saying that to the listeners to make this one giant ad, but it genuinely saved me. Like I've said this everywhere. Like you said, they fed us. They give us the best hotel I have ever stayed in. My sustainability heart was like crying inside. It was so happy. And just took care of us, which allowed like people like you and I who are cramming way too many things into a weekend as well as being in the race, the opportunity to have someone else take care of us while we were doing these things. So I'm just grateful for that. And anyway, so we met there. I had seen your work as a photographer all over the place. Also had the opportunity, which you kindly gave everyone a copy of your 20-year anniversary of Bridge Runners book. Would that be the term? Would you say book? Magazine? Magazine by Long Distance. Really enjoyed reading that. And it was nice, kind of easy, plain reading / just admiring on the way home. And I wanted to bring you on to talk about some of the pieces the things that you are doing within the community, but also one of the key things I want to talk to, and your Instagram handle is Not Afraid to Fail. That says a lot about you. But I also want to talk about something a little bit deeper than that, which we will get to related to it. But I want to begin with the photography work. And you also say you have a strong passion for track and field. So I want to start there. When did this passion for track and field, or which developed first, your passion for track and field or photography?
I would say track and field. I mean, photography, I remember in college dropping out of my photography class because I thought it was boring. So a couple of years later, full circle moment, being a professional photographer was pretty funny. But yeah, I was a multi-sport athlete growing up. I transferred high schools to play, I think it was like to play baseball. And I was sitting in a class and a substitute teacher comes in and he's a head track coach. And he was like, hey, I've seen you in like playing, just playing around and running. You're pretty fast. You should come and try out. And this was like cross country. And I feel like every track story starts like this.
He asked you about cross country specifically?
He told me he'd like come out and run cross country with us. Right. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I didn't know what cross country was. I literally thought we were running across the country, and little
Bye,
I know
Mom and
is
Dad,
going,
we'll see you in 6 weeks.
Right, exactly. And then we go over to Van Cortlandt Park. And I remember just running with, I forgot my teammate's name, but this is years ago. And we were second to last. But we were in our gym uniform, we were cotton t-shirts up and down Van Cortlandt. But I had the most fun, right? And I kept showing up. Then we got into indoor season. And then that was my first time going to the Armory. And that's where I kind of fell in love with it, right? And I think seeing the Armory, having that exposure to like track and field and like, I still remember every time you would walk in, it's the smell of Icy Hot or Bengay and like all that other stuff. So I think I had a really, having the Armory as your first track and field event, track and field experience is like something really, really memorable. And you can't really compete with something like that when you're playing baseball or football or anything like that. And you're going to like another high school's field. right? Going to like a world-class facility as your first experience, you're like, oh, like this is kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
And in 2002, running wasn't cool, right? Like running isn't what it is now. So like you had the short shorts and like, the the top piece, and that was too big for you. But there was something about the running community there and making friends from other schools that kind of was like, oh, like we're here more than just friendship. We're here to like compete, but yes, that's what it was. We were here to compete, but it was the competition was just like one part of it. You started making friends along the way because you would compete with them every single weekend. And it doesn't turn into like a traditional competition. It becomes like, oh, like let's help each other get to like the next level, or like what can I do to get you to like run together over the weekends on our off seasons, so we can go to the same college. So our plan was like, hey, like what do we have to do in order for us to be teammates in college, right? And those are kind of conversations that you didn't see from other sports,
Yes. There's a few things I want to respond to with that. The first being, I want to speak to the not cool side of things. I always say to people, so I was in high school around that same time. I graduated high school in 2006 or five, I think. And because in England, we don't make this big over the top celebration like you do over here. I don't know. I don't remember when I graduated. It was 5 or 6, somewhere around there. We didn't even call it graduation. It was finished school. But I remember I would run at night because I didn't want to be seen in running clothes. I didn't want my friends to know I ran. And now I look back on that and I'm like, I literally go around the world in running clothes. And so it's funny you have these full circle moments. And then secondly, having Van Cortlandt as your first cross-country experience and the Armory as your first indoor experience is absolutely iconic. I'm curious if you think if you had not had those two and you'd gone to some, dinky golf course for your first cross country and your first indoor had been at some, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a track in that area that, there's one that's right on the top of my mind that isn't very nice, but I remember going to
like a Fordham.
That was the one I was thinking of. Sorry to Fordham, but yes, that's exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah. Sorry to anyone who went to Fordham, but yes, exactly that. Do you think it would have had the same impact on you?
I didn't know anything about Van Cortlandt until Foot Locker Nationals or Manhattan College Invitational. So I thought I was just going to another park until like 5-6 weeks later, and you see like the Manhattan College Invitational, and you're there, and you're like, "Holy crap! Like this is insane!" And that's when I started getting a little into it, because how it was treated to me was like, "Hey, you're using this to get in shape for football or baseball, right?" But then when I went to the Armory, and then so first race was Armory, then Fordham. It was really, really funny because we would go to Fordham as well, and I was like, well, "What is this?" And I think, again, no shade to Fordham or Manhattan College, their track as well. I don't think I would have gotten hooked as much, right? I think I would have, because like you really can't see anyone when you're running at Fordham, right? Or you're running at Manhattan College. You have like those wires coming down. You have all these pits that are covering everything. So like you really couldn't see your friends. At the Armory, you're on center stage, and I think being able to cheer on your friends on a relay, and like you can hear your coach just yell and it will echo around the entire place. I think that was like the captivating thing. And, when you would go to those other locations, it wasn't the same feeling. And you could also feel like, oh, it felt like a practice versus just being there being at the Armory every time,
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Cause it's just, that's pretty amazing to have your first opportunity there. I haven't been to Manhattan College to know that one, but I mean, the Armory there's very few tracks in the US at least that can compete with that, if any, with its history and everything.
For sure.
So then you know, I'm assuming from there you then continued with track and field, enjoyed running more and more. Did it stay in your life from there?
Yeah. So I ran collegiately, and I think that's when I started. I don't want to say falling out of love, but you kind of feel like, oh, like we made it to college. None of the dreams that we had of like running with your friends came true, right? Because we all went to different colleges. We all ran in college, right? But like the business side of stuff started to come in. And it's like, well, like we all wanted to go to, like, for an example, we all wanted to go to Albany. You have Albany. And well, like so-and-so didn't get a full ride, so he has to go to another school. And like so-and-so did get a full ride and he's going to go there. And, you know, but the whole point was all five of us were going to go together. And I think, so I went to school and I made some really great teammates. And I think you start all over again, right? I think what I learned in college from my teammates, one was the different cultures, right? I am no longer embedded with New Yorkers. I am embedded with people from Jamaica. I'm embedded with people from Maryland, and like, you know, having my first time eating porridge or like, and stuff like that. And like how they do it. It's really, really cool. And at one point I ran with Sam Chalenga. He was on our team as well. And we would customize our workouts in order for him to like feel challenged, right? So like if Sam had to do like 4 mile repeats, me, Cortez, and like my other teammates, Derek, we would all run one lap as 2 laps, because we were indoors, 2 laps as hard as we can, and we would pace him so he can say, you know, so he can get a quality workout, and then us take a break, then the next person goes in. So it was interesting, but I think it became more of like, you have to be here at 6 a.m. and you have to do this. And if you don't show up to practice, then you have consequences. I enjoyed my collegiate career. I loved it. Once I got hurt, that's where I kind of was just like, this isn't as fun anymore. Right. Like when you kind of like realize when there's like a little bit of money on the line, is like, this isn't fun. Right. And I think, but again, I wouldn't change anything that I went through, because all those lessons that you learned throughout that time, I wouldn't appreciate it. I wouldn't appreciate running as much as I do now. Yes. Right. I wouldn't have stayed into that career of running as a photographer or anything else. I would have just like, all right, cool. Like, this was my way of like getting through college, and now I'm going to focus on my career. Right. I think everything that happened to me kind of built who I am today, and kind of give back to the community as much as I can. Because the one thing I always say is like, I don't want whoever wants to listen to me. Right. I don't want younger athletes to do the same mistakes or not know everything that can actually happen to you, because no one's really telling you anything. In high school, one of the things I learned is like, in high school, and I went to a great high school. It's like no shade, but it's more of, okay, like my job is try to graduate all these all these people, and however they graduate, and they go to college, is great. It's like extra points for them, right? I'm not saying there's a point system, but something like that. But they don't tell you the realities of it. They don't tell you like, all right, cool. Like if you go to a really, really good program of a school, right, that's great. But if you get hurt, they might take away your money. You know what I mean? Like, or like, and things like that. And it's just like, or like even when you're in college, like if you don't really know what you're doing, maybe don't take an art class, maybe take a finance class. You know what I mean? It's like, those are the things where I wish I was just like, I was told more, because again, in college, their job is also to make sure that you graduate by a certain time. Right. And those are the things where I kind of come in and talk to, like, when I go to like running camps in the summer and talk to like these kids. I go to one specific, the running school. I like talk to like the seniors and stuff like that and just be like, hey, like, if you guys are going to college or anything like that, or when you start thinking about college and you want to be a photographer, cool, the photography class is there, but you want to learn business, right? Like you want to learn how to run an actual business, because the creative part of it, you're going to have inside you. But like all the other stuff, like about taxes and like how to get away with certain things and stuff like that, like nobody teaches you that until you're in it. Right. So like, to me, that's like a small part of what I do for like the community, because I don't want to see younger people make the same mistakes or not mistakes, but let them take longer to achieve their goals.
Thank you to Allbirds for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast and for supporting me in my journey. Today, I want to talk to you about the Women's Tree Dasher 2. Now, I will be wearing these as I start going through these major marathons where I work long days. When I was at the Chicago Marathon last year, I worked a 13-hour day, multiple days in a row, and I wore my Women's Tree Dasher 2 every day. They were incredibly comfortable. Even when I walked back into my hotel room late at night, I did not have any aches and pains. I love the amount of colors that they come in. My favorite is definitely the Calm Cargo, which is kind of like a greeny colored. As you know, I do love green as it is a naturey color. They are very comfortable. They have great stability. And of course, as is Allbirds, they are passionate environmentally. They are doing the work. They are a B Corp and a highly rated B Corp at that. So that means they are doing what they need to do to be an environmentally sustainable company and relentlessly sticking to that. And so I encourage you to go check out the Tree Dashers if you have something for work, a work job that allows you to wear a pair of trainers, or just for traveling, for when you're on your feet for a lot of time, or just day to day. You will often see me wearing these shoes. They are my go-to. And if you go to allbirds.com, you can go check them out. And also, if you use the link in the show notes, you can get yourself a free pair of socks with your order when you add those to your cart using that link in the show notes. Go check it out at allbirds.com. I do talk about this often whenever I have someone who ran collegiately, about how intense that is of an experience. Like for me, coming from England to come to school over here and then going, as you said, these early practices, very serious. My first year, I just choked. I just ran really bad. I was so nervous about losing my money. All I could think about, it was so much pressure I felt on myself. And I just didn't do well because of it. Like it's a lot to carry around. And in addition, like you said, it's very much trying to push you through and doesn't really give you that freedom to figure out who you are or what you want to do. And so you just follow a path, which is difficult. And I love that you give back to the community in that way and help people to, just be a little bit ahead in knowing, what will help them if they have this dream. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us. Where did not afraid to fail come from? Is that something that was always in you, or was that something that developed from a specific thing?
So there was a couple of things. It's a Derek Jeter quote. Derek Jeter said it in an interview once, and I was like, oh, that always stuck in my head. And then I was in college and I was opening up a Twitter account and I was like, oh, like, not afraid to fail. That sounds kind of cool. And that, like, I wish there was a cooler story, but that was it. But it really comes from Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter, Yankee great. Like, he's one of my favorite athletes ever. So he's like the prime example of showing first one in, last one out, a very clean career, nothing in the media about him. And I try to live my life that way where, be positive, be not always positive, but positive as much as I can be, but also like, be very clean, be very respectful, do your job, get in, get out kind of mentality. So yeah, that's where it really comes from.
How do you not take that to an extreme in terms of like what you were just saying that, like, first there, trying to keep things very clean, trying to, I can't remember the other third piece you said there, but related to how do you not take it too far? Like with what we were saying at the very beginning, from what I've got of you so far and what I see, you work very hard. And it could be easy for you to put it under, I'm not afraid to fail. I gotta, put myself out there with what we talked about before we started recording of like burning out, doing too much.
Sure. I think, and I this is going to go a little bit, but I'll tie it all back together. Yeah. I think my time in LA now, and I just came into this conclusion just recently. If I were still in New York, I would have burnt myself out.
Oh yeah.
And I think moving to LA, as much as it was a career shift for me on trying to like push myself outside of my comfort zone, I've realized that LA has taught me how to like slow down and like, you don't always have to grind so hard. You don't have to leave at 6 in the morning and not come back until 11 p.m. at night with a backpack of change of clothes, with your gym bag and all that other stuff, right? I think the last year and a half in New York, before I moved out here, I was super depressed. And I couldn't understand why. And it was just because like I didn't know what else I wanted to do, right? I did my entire career as a runner, as a photographer, was always to get to the Olympics, right? No matter how good or bad you are at running, your dream is to go to the Olympics, right? I knew as a runner, I couldn't make it. A little later in life, I was like, this is not going to happen. But I used photography. It's almost like archery is like the favorite example that I give, right? Archery, the bullseye is still the same, but you can move a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right, just to adjust. But that bullseye is still the same. The bullseye was just get to the Olympics. It didn't matter as a runner or whatever. And I think being in New York, I did everything possible. Like I remember at the very beginning of my career, I drove from New York to Iowa and slept in a car, one of the nights because I only gave myself like a $400 budget and, it's doing stuff like that in order for me to just be there. People can see my face. Right. Mm-hmm. And now to where I am now, I feel like what LA is teaching me is work smarter, not harder. Mm-hmm. Right. I think this is why I'm like trying to like divvy back a little bit from photography and do more production stuff like long distance, like the book that we talked about, right? Doing more community-based things. I've always said the career that I have is because of the running community that gave me this opportunity, not only in New York, but in like around the globe, right? Like one of the things that I pride myself is like, if I'm covering a marathon, cool, I'll get my top 10 elites and then make it down to mile 21 to the cheer zone and capture all those friends, right? Because if it wasn't for them, I would have never gotten the notoriety from all these brands that I've worked with. So I think now it's just more of, and it's hard. I'm not going to say that it's hard trying to slow down, but like when I was telling you at the beginning of the conversation, like it was Monday and Monday's like, you got to go attack Monday. You got to like do this. But like, I didn't have any energy on me yesterday and I just snapped. Right. And like, I got my emails out and stuff like that. But like, today's another day. Right. Yeah. And like forcing yourself to be in front of a computer just so you can bang out something, but it's low quality. And then 2 days from now, you're going to go back and redo it. Right. Like I think, again, and it's the people that I'm surrounding myself with now too, is like, just listen to your body, listen to what you need. And it's okay. You know what I mean? Like we're closing the year, it's December 5th and we're closing out the year. And honestly, if it doesn't get done December, whatever, it's going to get done in January. And we're not, one of the things that I've realized is like, we're not saving lives. We're not doctors.
Yes.
We're not like anyone of that stature that, and it's okay. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay not to be tied down to your timelines. It's okay to like say, hey, I just put in a whole season of marathoning and projects and this and that. And it's like, it's okay. You know what I mean? Like,
I literally know exactly what you mean. I actually say the same thing to myself. I'm like, you're not an emergency room doctor. You don't need to do this, even if it feels like someone. I actually, so I told you, I think the day after the race that I ran with Kaylee Williamson, and that story, of course, went viral. In the week afterwards, I had all these bookers calling me and you know, ABC and ESPN and all these like, just outreach, you know, the Today Show, all of it. And they made it feel like it was life or death. Like they would send me a text at 3 p.m. and I'd be on my way to pick up my daughter. And then I'd get another text at 7 p.m. saying, where is this? And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I don't jump at you, but it was still making me feel like this is so important. I have to do this right now. And I just, I had to remind myself, like, it doesn't matter. Like, these people may live this way, and that's got to be tough living that way. But like, I had to keep reminding myself, and I do often the same as you, like, it doesn't matter. And not that people who are doctors shouldn't be able to step back either. Sure. As we saw with the pandemic, like, they can burn out just as easily. Yeah. But it is funny how in your head you get this down of like, oh, I said I needed to get this in by Friday, and it doesn't matter if it's a few days.
Right.
And if it is, then, you know, that wasn't meant to be. Or at least that's what I tell myself if you do lose something.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's so like it's funny, right? And that realization came because my little brother is an actual doctor, and like and we like talk here and there sometimes, and like, but it's true, right? Like, he'll like just listen to me when I'm talking about. He goes like, "Dude, you're talking about social media, and you're talking about like Instagram. Like, I'm actually have to like, you know, like save someone's life and stuff like that." Like, and then he's like, so like I like talking to him sometimes kind of makes me like put things in perspective, and it's like. Yeah, like it's just social media. You know what I mean? Like, at least for me, like, it's just more like, I don't want to slip back to that time where I was in New York, where I was depressed. And I think whatever I do now to keep me afloat with my mental health is what I'm going to do to like protect it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so that ties in. You just mentioned about Tokyo or at the Olympics, which, you know, you did work Tokyo. You were a photographer in the Tokyo Olympics for USATF. Is that right?
Yeah. So yes. Yeah.
Okay. And in the post about that, I want to focus in on one piece of what you said, which was that you passed on career opportunities, demoted myself, didn't take job offers because I knew there wouldn't be as much flexibility as I have now with my current work situation. And you talked about like betting on yourself. I would love to talk through this piece with you because, you know, sorry, you didn't talk about betting on yourself. That's what I would like to talk about betting on yourself, trusting yourself, even if that means saying no to things. And exactly what we just said there of like, maybe a brand is saying you have to get this to me by 5 p.m. on Friday, and you have a ginormous headache and you just cannot get to it. And trusting that even though that didn't work out, something else will come in its place or something else will unfold. So maybe, yeah, what are your thoughts on that, particularly reflecting to this pinnacle moment for you of something you'd always, that bullseye that you mentioned, working towards?
Yeah, I think... So yeah, I think betting on myself was a big thing, and it's very discouraging. It's a very discouraging thing because throughout the process, there were certain people at my former employer where I would tell certain managers certain things, and people wouldn't like. They would like scoff at it or like kind of laugh at it, and we're like, oh, like, or they'll just be like, oh, kind of a big, big dream to have. But then there's also with that, there's also people that really, really, really believe in you, right? Mm-hmm. And I always say, and this is one specific person, Anne just believed, right? And you only need one person to just believe in you and to make it make sense and like everything's going to be okay. No matter what happened, I always was going to put photography first, right? So there were times at Apple, that was my former employer, where there were certain opportunities that came my way. And I was just like, I would go home, I was excited, and I was like, yeah, let's take it. And then I'll be like, well, if I take this, then that means I won't be able to like go to this opportunity or something like that if something were to come up. So little by little, I started demoting myself like 3 or 4 times to the point where I was like just part-time entry level. And mind you, I was in that company for 12 years, right?
Did you have a lead on Tokyo at this point?
No.
This wasn't like you thought this might happen?
Yeah. So like I knew January. I knew at Milrose Games that year that I was going to Tokyo. So like January, February 2020 is where I knew I was going to Tokyo, right? So 5 months before, not a year and a half earlier, like everybody else. So, but I had a feeling. I've done everything that I can, right? And it was just like, if it happens, it happens, right? But I remember watching Rio from my house, and I just remember watching it, sitting in a couch, watching it, and I felt gutted. And at that point, I was way too new and fresh to have that experience. And it was a little arrogance of me to be like, it was a little bit of arrogance. That's what it was, right? But I did channel that energy of being gutted and saying, hey, like, remember this feeling? Because in the next 4 years, if you don't do anything, and if you're still watching it at home, it's on you, right? It is not on anybody else but yourself. And I think that's the energy that I took to do whatever I took in order for me to go to Tokyo. And I think that's where it was like, it wasn't easy. Like, I would take jobs that was like $500, $600, and just to continue building the portfolio, shoots would go up to like 10 o'clock at night, and then the photos had to be ready by 7 o'clock in the morning. So I remember like editing through the night, sleeping, falling asleep for like 10 minutes, edit another 5 photos, sleep for another 10, and then get ready to be at Apple at like, it had to be at work at 6:30, right? So like I did that for like the 2 or 3 years, and it all felt worth it. It all felt worth it because there was a bigger picture. There was something that I was working towards. And once Tokyo happened, it was like, holy crap, like it finally happened, right? But again, I feel like this is, and if you keep on reading the post also says like, I burnt myself out. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think having the experience of, being an Olympic photographer is great, is cool. But one of the things that you realize is like, it's not going to change your life. Right.
Yeah.
And you think you go into it with this mentality of like, oh man, like this is going to change my life. I'm going to be like, I'm going to get to do this, this, and this, and I'm going to get whatever projects I want to work on. And that's not true. And I think I want to, you said something at the beginning where it's just like, people think I'm like very, very successful. Like, yeah, to a certain degree, but it's not to the point where I want to be, right? Like I want to be able to like choose the projects that I want. And I think social media is your highlight reel, right?
Absolutely.
It is absolutely your highlight reel, but it's not really like how things are. There are certain months where I'm just like, holy crap, I haven't worked in like 45 days. And my savings account is starting to get like a little, how am I going to pay rent and stuff like that, right? I still have that. I still, things are not as, you know, whatever they say is like rainbows and butterflies.
Yeah,
there are certain struggles here and there. But I've been very, 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 whatever guardian angels are looking out for me, they've it's never gotten to the point where I'm like, oh, like I'm in trouble.
Thank you to Precision Fuel and Hydration for sponsoring this episode of the Running For Real podcast and for supporting me this year. I am so excited that I am now back to being able to take my Precision PF30 gels as I am running long enough to be able to. I cannot wait to go into 2024 using these gels, making the most of these gels. They have a very mild, neutral taste, so you don't get that flavor fatigue. They go down easily. I genuinely enjoy taking them down. And I'm not talking about for a gel. I'm talking about just in general. The texture is designed to reduce stickiness in your mouth, minimize the need to wash it down with water. And it just is easy to take down. I absolutely love it. So you, as a friend of mine, can get 15% off by using code Tina Sent Me. That's code Tina Sent Me at precisionhydration.com. You can also go check out their electrolytes there. And if you have not already done it, go check out the link in the show notes to get the free fuel and hydration planner. If your race did not go according to plan, if you feel like your nutrition isn't quite there for during your race, this will unlock it for you. I realized this year I had been doing my nutrition all wrong for my elite career. And I wonder now how much time I gave up by not focusing on getting enough fuel and carbs. This calculator is free. You can go through the link in the show notes, and you can also, again, use that code Tina Sent Me to get 15% off your order. I encourage you to go check it out. These gels are amazing. I love them, and I know you will too. Go to precisionhydration.com and use code Tina Sent Me. Okay, I want to dig into a few of those things. First is in those moments. Well, firstly, I want to say I appreciate you sharing that, and I think that's probably very good for a lot of people to hear because, as you said that, and I was guilty of saying it to you at the beginning, there is this image from what we see that once you get to a certain point, it's like smooth sailing, and sure, you'll have some kind of other challenges come up, but it's you've got it all down. And I think, to be honest, I get put in that bucket. I'd imagine some of my listeners think I'm in that bucket too. But my husband has often said to me, like, Tina, we don't run a non-profit, or you don't run a non-profit here
Sure.
for the same thing. And I think people think I'm just same thing, just crushing it all the time, which is not the case. What in those moments where, you know, your account is starting to drop, I've had many moments where I have been almost reached a kind of bucket point of where I'm like, I'm just going to go work for one of the running brands. I don't want to do this anymore. And I've talked to friends and they're like, you're not going to do that. And I'm not going to let you do that. But I have reached that moment many times. Even about a year ago, I daydreamed about working in a coffee shop. I was like, I'm just going to get a local coffee shop job. I'm going to get tips, and I'm just going to do that. So what do you tell yourself in those moments when things are starting to drop to keep going?
Yeah, I think, last week I was just on LinkedIn for an hour trying to find something. I think, like I mentioned, I worked for 12 years at Apple. So like there is a structure that I need and I miss, right? So even if everything is okay, I am not a good entrepreneur, right? I am not really good at like managing my time and this and that, you know? But what I do tell myself when it comes to when things start getting a little rough is like, do I really want to be in an office working for someone else's dreams, right? Why do I want to work for my dreams and my goals, or do I want to make it easier for everybody else or for someone else, right? And there are times where you need a compromise and you need to like kind of be like, you have to do things that you don't want to do sometimes, right?
Yes.
But I think as long as you are still working on your dreams, or you 20% of that time is working on the stuff that you want to work on, it's okay. The one thing I am not going to tell people to do is like quit your job and like do this and that. Like it took me 12 years. It took me 12 years to leave Apple. And I started shooting my second year at Apple. 10 years at Apple, a whole decade. It took me to kind of be like, all right, cool. Like, let's pull the safety blanket and bet on yourself.
Were you thinking about it that whole 10 years? Like, was it kind of on your mind?
No. I think the last 3 years, that's when it was just like, it started getting in the way, right? Like it started getting in the way, but there are certain things, right? Like health insurance, right? Like paying $20 for health insurance because you're part of a big company, helps a lot versus the $700-800 that you have to pay because you have asthma, right? Like those are the little things that you're like, you think about it and like, oh, like this makes sense. But there are certain things like your time, your freedom of saying like, hey, sure, I'll go to Hawaii for 5 days and shoot, that you can't have when you're working for someone else. Right. I think the last 2 years, again, going back to like the business part of it, like the last 2 years at Apple, it worked because I was just part-time. So I can give away my shifts and I can give away this, and like I didn't have to be in the business for that long. Things have probably changed since then. So if anybody's listening and you guys work there, don't do this. But yeah, I think it worked because I had someone who had my back, right? But what I tell myself to answer your question is what I said, which is, do you want to work for someone else's dreams, or do you want to work towards yours?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And it's also good to mention, as you did, that the time has to be right. And while some people may have the resources to be able to just leap, it doesn't mean that that's necessarily the right thing to do, even if you have to find a way like you did to kind of back your way out. Unless your job is really, truly making you miserable, in which case, like, find a way somehow to be able to lean more into that. I want to also go into then what you said there about Tokyo. I haven't heard someone as a creative say that before. I've had elite runner friends say, they did the Olympics, they thought everything would change. 6 weeks later, they wake up and they're like, oh, life is as it was before. So talk to that piece, because are you good in general at looking back now to see all you've done over a year or over your career? And yeah, what was that like in that moment, having this been your target, your focus for so many years, and then realizing that it wasn't what you always thought, it wasn't the egg cracking open that you thought it would be for the future?
Right. I think, yes. I think, I don't know. I think to me, I won't deny this. Access has gotten easier, right? If I want something or if I need something, that access to people that I have is much easier.
Yeah.
But it's like I said, there are certain times where my savings account is like, all right, you know what I mean? And you think, and this is the second time that this has happened in my career, in terms of like you have like, this global campaign, and you get to go to Kenya, and like you get to shoot the number one athlete in the world, and you think that's going to change your life, and it doesn't. Right. I thought maybe, well, it was probably bad timing with that one, and like maybe having that and the Tokyo would change it, and it's not. And maybe it's me not like, I think I'm a very like quiet person. I don't put myself out there enough. And I, like maybe it's my mentality of like, you don't have to post every day and all that other stuff is not giving me the opportunities, right? Like contradicting what we just said earlier. But I think, yeah, like I wish I can answer that for you, but I'm still trying to figure it out. Like, what is the missing piece? Or like, or whatever. Like sometimes this is not the path that you're supposed to be on, right? Like sometimes that is just a stepping stone in order for you to meet someone, or a stepping stone for you to like be introduced to something else, but this is not the final path that this is supposed to be on. So that's why it's not unlocking all these other doors, right? Like I'm a firm believer in like in that kind of energy, and you know, growing up in that kind of like lifestyle, not lifestyle, but like the having that kind of like talk and influence in your life, where these stepping stones that you're getting closer, or your opening door and having access and stuff like that, should be leading you to the actual reason why you were put on this earth for, right? And maybe photography isn't it, but that it's guiding you towards that, like to that piece or that person or that door that's supposed to unlock for you.
I wonder if it's also partly, you know, a running analogy is kind of best for this, in that I think non-runners think for runners, every run is like amazing and great, and we're just like really enjoying it. But the reality is most runs are kind of mundane. There's quite a few bad runs. There's obviously the good runs, and then there's the incredible moments that happen because of the bad moments you worked through, because of the mundane that you know, just continued through. And I think, as you said, with social media, the world of social media, we as entrepreneurs, as creatives, also feel like it should just kind of be up, 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 and continuing, when really we need those moments to either unlock parts of ourselves that we've been ignoring. Because when everything's when you're thriving and everything's going well, you push all those things aside. You don't think about those deeper meanings. And I wonder if it's like we need those as, the same way that a bad run reminds you that running is hard. As you just had a day where you struggled in New York, you know, and we forget that though, because what we see on social media, I just actually this morning posted a recap of what my year in my 2023 work year has been. And when I look at that, let alone someone else, I'm like, wow, I did a lot. That is a very exponential rise in my career. However, there was many, many, many moments where it felt like things weren't moving fast enough. And so I do think it, once again, there's a good running analogy for it. But thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's true, right? Like listen, one of the things that my mom always told me was like, as long as your rent is being paid, they can't kick you out of your house, right? And the thing is, like, yes, has this year been successful? Absolutely. Never was. I paid all my bills. Everything is taken care of. If I want to go on a trip, I can go on a trip, right? Where a lot of people don't have the opportunity to be like, well, I guess I want to go to like so-and-so after Berlin. You know what I mean? The simple fact that I can go to Berlin and run a marathon, you know, like those are the things where you're just like, you look back and you're like, what are you talking about? Right? But at the same time, it's just like, I want to hit personal goals of like, I want to own a home and I want to do this. And like, as you get older, I'm close to 40. I'm like, dang, I'm still renting and buying an apartment. And like, I have other friends who've worked at 9 to 5 and go into work and clock in, clock out, who have those things. But then when I have those conversations with them, they're like, yeah, but like, dude, like, I don't get to go to Berlin and London and this, you know these countries that you're going to hit every single year. And so like, it's a give and take, right? So yes, it's not where you want to be life-wise, but there's so much more experience that comes with it, right? And like, Another quote, I don't know where this has come from, but like I feel like I'm like quoting all my family members. They're like, you can't take the money with you to your grave, but you can take those experiences with you,
Yes, I
right?
love that.
And like and I think that's it, right? I think as you start getting a little older, you focus more on like the experiences in life with the people that you care about. And if those things, and if that's what makes you happy, cool. You know what I mean? But versus having all these like achievements that people have put on you when you're growing up, right? By like 28, you should own a house and this and that. You know, like, yeah, that's cool if you you went to the bank and you know worked at a bank or whatever it is, right? You can achieve that. But the simple fact that I can say I've been trackside at the Olympics or at gymnastics or at like the final gold medal match for, you know, for a soccer game, a football game, like I can say that, you know what I mean? And like, I have that feeling, and that feeling of like being like giddy and a little kid and like, you know, like at 30 something years old, still feeling like a little child sometimes is really, 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 really cool. You know?
Yeah. You're absolutely right with the give and take. And back to the beginning of like, you know, for me, that experience AG1 gave us was a good example for me of that, of like, okay, so I may not have like a corporate job that puts me up in a Four Seasons every time I travel, but like I have a brand that is taking care of me in this situation. That is a massive gift and something that is unique
Absolutely.
to those of us who are friends of the brand, partners of the brand. And that's one of our perks. But other people may be able to get perks in other ways. Maybe they have a friend who's a pilot and they can get upgraded to first class every time, or get free tickets or whatever it might be. So we all have our things, as you mentioned. So thank you for that. We've obviously spent a lot of time on this, and I've loved this conversation. Is there anything else on this topic that you would like to end with, just in terms of, you know, having goals, chasing goals, succeeding past those goals, and how to live beyond those goals?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would leave with is like, if anyone, one thing I would tell anyone and myself is like, stop comparing yourself to other people. Like, and it's so hard to do, but like, especially like when it comes across social media, like we don't know each other's truths, right? Like you, for example, I had this worst day of my life during New York City Marathon, but the number one picture I posted is me smiling through like a cheer zone and stuff like that, right? And like that is an example of it, right? Like New York City Marathon kicked my butt. I don't know if we can curse here, but you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah. But it's but the photo that went up first is like smiles and this and that energy. Don't let that scare you, right? Whatever you see on social media is not everybody's truth. And I think it's more of like, as long as you know, and as long as you keep your head down, keep working and all that other stuff, things are always going to work out, right? Everybody is just going through different chapters in their lives, right? Just because you see me and like, I'm going to the Olympics and I get to do this and I'll go with this brand and stuff like that, that doesn't mean that I have it all figured out.
Yeah.
Right. It just means that I'm just 3 chapters ahead of you in life because I've done it for a little bit longer than you. Right. And I think people are trying to rush that, like those experiences and stuff like that. But the thing that they forget about is the relationships that you need to build along the way. Without the relationships and without like nurturing those relationships and people, that's the people who can give you access, not who you shoot, or not like you got to do this and, you know, I got to be with this athlete or whatever. But if you work on the relationships of the people that throughout your journey, that's how those doors open up for you.
100%. I believe that with my whole heart, that every opportunity I've been given is because of the relationships I've nurtured. So Could not agree
Absolutely.
with you more. And also, you saying about you might be chapters ahead of people. We're also chapters behind people in other things.
Absolutely.
I've had a year that has really career-wise skyrocketed, but my running, I've had the worst injury I've ever had in my life. And that was my give and take. My running sacrificed and paid the price. And, I maybe was in chapter 12 and now I've gone back to chapter 2.
Right.
So, that's how it works sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
Good give and take. Okay, so I want to finish off talking about, I mentioned it earlier, Long Distance put out a magazine, a 20-year anniversary of Bridge Runners. If you want to tell listeners a little bit about that, is that something you've worked a lot on this year, just to wrap here?
Yeah, for sure. I think so. Long Distance, real quick, started during the pandemic. So my buddy and business partner Dewey, he's out in LA, Koreatown Run Club co-founder. He reached out to me and was like, "Hey, man, like, kind of bored. Do you want to put a book together?" And our very first book came out in 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, and it was just like we reached out to our friends, and it was like, can you show us how running looks like in your city during lockdown? Mm. So we went from New York to LA to Mexico, Brazil, Jakarta, London, Tokyo. The Rolodex that we have of photographers and friends and runners, it was a truly a community built magazine business, right? From there, we worked on a second issue, which was very specific to this one running brand that Nike worked with for a little bit. And then this is our third issue, which was the 20th year anniversary of Bridge Runners. Bridge Runners basically started the crew running movement 20 years ago. And I think it was something really, really special that I really wanted to work on. Because, like I said before, if it wasn't for this running community, this global running community, I wouldn't have the career that I have, right? And I think highlighting the one crew that started it all, and that's from New York, I felt like it was one of the ways I can give back to the community that gave me so much, right? Telling that origin story of, like, someone like Mike Sace, who has really no real running background, right? Other than like running away because he was doing graffiti and things like that. Like it just spoke to me so much, because not running doesn't have to be for that top tier. Anyone can be a runner, right? And it just takes a little self-search in order for you to kind of realize, like, oh, like everybody can do this. And it's a beautiful thing that someone of color can bring white, black, brown, all these different races together just to be healthy, right? I think going back to like what we were said at the beginning of the conversation, something about being burnt out in New York and like that constant struggle and grind, being part of this running community, being part of Black Roses and All Man Run Club and Brooklyn Track Club, like at least I knew, or even Bridge Runners, at least I knew once a week, I had a group of friends that I consider now family, that we can all just, the common language was running. Right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, doesn't matter. Even if like you go all the way uptown and run with the Root Crew, you had a group of family that you can go and exercise with, whether if it's an hour, finish that run and go grab something to eat and then go home. Right? I think that aspect of running to me made me fall back in love with running and made me want to like not just photograph it, but also start running again. Right.
I love that.
Yeah. So
thank you for sharing that. So where can people go find more about Long Distance, follow you, give us some places they can go?
So to follow me is at Not Afraid to Fail with the number 2. Long Distance is longdistance.world. That is also our website. So it's long distance dot with a little period world. And then you can also, I think that's it.
Okay. Well, Jason, thank you. I have absolutely loved this conversation. I appreciate you, all that you're doing, and just your vulnerability and honesty with us. So can't wait to see what the coming years has in store for you. And just thank you for joining me today.
Sweet. Thank you so much.
Before we go any further, I just want to give a quick shout out to the Running for Real team. Without them, I would not be able to do barely anything compared to what I'm able to do today. They are behind the scenes. They are there for me. I am just so appreciative of them. To Jeremy Nessel, our podcast editor, audio consultant, and someone who's been with me since the start. To Sally Pontarelli, our content and operations manager, who is there day to day doing all the things to help me be successful. To Kelsey Wang, our head of design, and Louise Murphy, our associate designer. And finally, to Sandy Gutierrez, our photographer and content strategist. I am appreciative of all of you and wouldn't be able to do what I do without you. Wow. I loved that conversation with Jason. So appreciative of his vulnerability there, of sharing his journey with us. And I hope you found that helpful, particularly when you look at someone like Jason or myself, where it appears everything is going well, that it's not always necessarily the case. And also, that tale as old as time that we talk about often here of sometimes when it looks like everything has come together, you've achieved this lifetime goal, you can feel a bit lost afterwards on what to do. I want to remind you that becoming a sustainable runner would, in my unbiased opinion, make a great holiday gift, and you can find it at becomingaSustainableRunner.com. It's also on Amazon. You can go get an Audible copy there, a Kindle version there, and of course the paperback copy, which you can find in all major retailers. Thank you so much to those of you who have supported. And if you want to give me a holiday gift, especially as you have an extra 2 hours of time for not having episodes the next 2 weeks, I would love if you would go leave a review on Amazon. So thank you for that. I also want to remind you to check out the links in the show notes, which will be at runningforreal.com/episode 380. And you can also find links there to our sponsors. AG1, Jason and I talked about how much of a gift they have been. You can get that free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 free travel packs. To Allbirds, you can go to the link in the show notes to get yourself a free pair of socks if you add it to your cart. And to Precision, you can get yourself 15% off by using code Tina Sent Me or using the link in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you for the final episode of 2023. I appreciate you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.